September 12th, 2008, a day that started like any other. Commuters boarded trains heading home after a long work week. Parents, students, professionals, none of them knew what was coming. At exactly 4:22 p.m., a horrific crash shook Los Angeles' Metrolink system. Two massive trains, one commuter, one freight, slammed into each other at full speed. The collision was so violent that train cars crumpled like paper, sending debris flying, metal screeching, and passengers into chaos. One of those passengers was Charles E. Peck, a man with everything to live for. But hours after the wreckage settled, something impossible happened. His phone began to call his loved ones, again and again and again. 35 calls in total. Each time his family answered, expecting to hear his voice, but there was only silence. No words, no cries for help, just static. Yet, the calls kept coming. Was Charles alive, desperately trying to reach them? Could his phone have been malfunctioning? Or was something far stranger at work? This is the chilling, true story of the mysterious phone calls of Charles Peck, a tale of tragedy, technology, and perhaps something beyond the great. The Chatsworth Metrolink disaster should never have happened. At 4:22 p.m., a Metrolink commuter train carrying 225 passengers raced north toward the San Fernando Valley. Up ahead, a Union Pacific freight train thundered south. A single red light should have stopped the commuter train. The engineer never saw it. Later, investigations would reveal a chilling fact. The engineer had been texting just seconds before impact. He never even hit the brakes. At 83 miles per hour, the two trains collided head-on. The explosion rocked the valley. The first car of the Metrolink was completely destroyed, its metal frame twisted beyond recognition. Smoke, fire, screams. Inside that wreckage, Charles Peck was traveling for a job interview in Los Angeles. His fiancée, Andrea Katz, had spoken to him just before the crash. They were planning their future, excited for what was next. And then, silence. Andrea turned on the news. She saw the images of the mangled train, the twisted metal, the emergency crews frantically searching for survivors. Then her phone rang. It was Charles. 6 p.m., 2 hours after the crash. Andrea's phone lights up with a call from Charles Peck. Her heart pounds. She grabs the phone and answers. Silence. Just static. Then the call ends. A few minutes later, another call. Then another. Charles's son in Utah gets a call. His brother gets a call. His stepmother, his sister. 35 calls over the next 11 hours. His family was frantic. They begged him to say something. But every time, only static. And when they tried calling back, voicemail every time. The calls continued all night. And then, at exactly 3:28 a.m., they stopped. Rescue workers fought for hours to pull survivors from the wreckage. Every moment counted. When they learned about the mysterious phone calls, they became convinced someone is alive down there. They followed the signal, they searched the wreckage, and then, finally, they found him. Charles Peck was dead. He had died instantly at 4:22 p.m., the exact moment of impact. Yet his phone had continued to make calls for 11 hours. And then, as soon as his body was recovered, the calls stopped. To understand how a phone could keep making calls for 11 hours after death, we turn to telecommunications experts and forensic analysts. Dr. David Forsyth, a mobile communications engineer, explained that under normal circumstances, a phone should not make outbound calls unless someone physically interacts with it. However, there are rare cases where a short circuit caused by damage can trigger a phone's dial-out function. A phone can auto-redial numbers stored in its memory if a call fails. In extreme crashes, loose connections inside the phone can make it act erratically. Forensic investigator Nicole Ashford, who specializes in disaster recoveries, pointed out that power source longevity also plays a role. Most phones die quickly in disasters because of battery damage, she explains. But if Charles's phone remained intact with just enough power, it could have been stuck in an infinite loop of auto-dialing. The problem? There was no record of a similar phone malfunction happening in the same train crash. No one else's phone randomly called their families for hours. Even tech experts can't fully explain why Charles's phone behaved this way, adding to the mystery. Believe it or not, Charles Peck's case isn't the only instance of post-mortem phone calls. During the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, a Sri Lankan passenger train called Queen of the Sea was swept off the tracks, killing nearly 1,700 people, one of the deadliest train tragedies in history. Days later, several families of victims reported receiving text messages from their deceased relatives' phones. Investigators believe seawater damage may have triggered glitches in the phone's message storage, but they never found the devices that sent the texts. In 2012, a commuter train crashed into a station in Buenos Aires, Argentina, killing 51 people. Reports emerged of a phone inside the wreckage, ringing constantly. Rescue workers followed the ringing noise, assuming someone was alive. But when they reached the source, it was an abandoned phone with no SIM card inside. Experts suggested it may have been a network error, but why would a phone with no SIM keep dialing out? These cases suggest that Charles Peck's calls aren't an isolated event, but part of a larger mystery. The Chatsworth Metrolink crash was a preventable tragedy, but the mystery of Charles Peck's phone calls remains unsolved. His loved ones will never forget the sight of his name on their caller IDs, only to answer and hear nothing but static. Was this a technology failure? Was it a coincidence? Or was it a sign from the other side? What do you believe? Comment below. Thank you for writing Track 13, where the rails meet the unknown. For more eerie mysteries, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Until next time, keep your ears open. You never know who might be calling.